When we talk about gender today, it can all feel so new, right? So modern. But what if I told you that the idea of more than two genders is actually ancient? We're about to dive into that story, a story that connects our world today with some of the oldest traditions on Earth. Okay, so this quote from Rabbi Elliot Kukla, it just cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? It challenges this really basic idea that a lot of us grew up with, that male and female, as a strict binary, has just always been the way things are. Well, as we're about to see, history tells a much, much more interesting story. And that brings us right up to today. A few years back, a memo gets leaked, and it's trying to lock down a federal definition of sex in these really rigid terms. The argument wasn't that this was some new idea, but that it was a return to how things have always been. But was it? All right, so let's dig into this so-called modern rule and the claims that are being made to prop it up. And this is where things get really fascinating. You have this claim that a strict binary is tradition. But the reality, when you actually look at the history, is that saying that is a massive denial of history. This idea that it's always been just two genders, it's not just inaccurate, it actually wipes out centuries of human experience. Okay, so let's jump back in time and see what that ancient reality actually looked like. Our first stop, classical Jewish texts. So let me introduce you to a term, tumtum. Now this is just one of several terms you can find in the Talmud. The fact that there was a specific legal category for people whose sex was ambiguous shows you that ancient rabbis weren't ignoring this. No, they were actively discussing it and figuring out how it fit into their laws. And wow, look at this. This slide just lays it all out. We're not talking about two sexes here. The Talmud lays out at least 6 different classifications. You've got male and female, sure, but also androgynous, tumtum, saris, and ilanid. And this wasn't some obscure footnote either. These figures show up hundreds of times in some of Judaism's most foundational texts. And here's the real kicker. These identities weren't just seen as some rare exception. According to some of these ancient texts, gender diversity was part of our origin story. Adam, the very first human, is described as being an androgynous. And even Abraham and Sarah, the patriarch and matriarch of the entire Jewish people, are described as having been tumtum before they transitioned. But, this wasn't just happening in one corner of the world, not by a long shot. So let's head over to another part of the globe, to ancient India. In Hinduism, you have this incredible deity, Ardhanarishvara. This is a form of the god Shiva and the goddess Parvati, fused into a single body. It's this beautiful, powerful symbol that basically says, hey, the divine isn't just one thing or the other, it's everything, all at once. A perfect blend of masculine and feminine. And this wasn't just some abstract idea. It was reflected in real life, with the Hijra community, South Asia's third gender. For centuries, they had respected roles, serving as royal advisors and administrators. But then things changed drastically. Colonial-era laws came in and criminalized them. And today, their reality is a world away from that respected past. They face so much discrimination and are often pushed to the absolute margins of society. So you see this pattern, right? This move from reverence in our history to prejudice in our present. And it has a real and, frankly, a very dangerous human cost. So what exactly is that price? Well, according to one major study, transgender people are over 4 times more likely than cisgender people to be the victims of a violent crime. 4 times more likely. And this chart, man, it just makes that number impossible to ignore. Look at the difference. For every 1,000 trans people, you have over 86 violent victimizations. For cisgender people, it's under 22. This isn't just a risk, it's a constant state of vulnerability. And when you dig deeper, the numbers are just devastating. A huge survey in the US found that around half of all trans people reported being verbally harassed or sexually assaulted. More than half experienced violence from a partner. The threat isn't just out there somewhere, it's everywhere. And this quote from the Supreme Court of India, it just nails it. When you look at data like that, it becomes so clear. We're not just talking about social acceptance or medical debates anymore. This is a human rights issue, period. So, how did we get to this point? Well, the danger people face today is directly tied to the erasure of the very same history we've just been talking about. Let's go back to what Rabbi Kukla said because this is such a chilling warning. When you have policies or rhetoric that tries to define an entire group of people out of existence, that is never the end goal. It's the first domino to fall. It opens the door to taking away rights, protections, their very humanity. Which brings us to our final question. This journey shows us that gender diversity isn't some new fad. It's a deep part of our shared, ancient human story. And when we forget that, we're not just hurting one community. We're losing a part of ourselves. We're letting ourselves believe that humanity is supposed to fit into these neat, tiny boxes. And if we forget this, what else are we forgetting?